gonna have a lot of these type of conversations as we move down from high swing speed to mid swing speed to low swing speed in the coming weeks, where some of what rises to the top is maybe not what people expect. And so for high speed players, number one for high swing speed players, Cobra DS Adapt Max K. So Cobra's 10K driver at the top for high swing speed players. And you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Or some may think that. But if you think about it conventionally, right? I talk about
make it make sense to me then.
So I describe speed, swing speed, ball speed, any kind of speed as gasoline, right? It's because everything in golf is exponential.
What is up, everybody? How you living? No putts given and no Tony currently. He is not in a seat, and now he's in a seat. He's back. I'm back. I took a little spring break last week with the children. Went down to Mexico and ingested copious amounts of quesadillas. And down there, Tony, you might find this interesting, they call it Coke Light, not Diet Coke. Or, as one of my servers told me, they call it Coca-Cola Skinny, which I'm sure as he was serving them to me, he was just laughing. That's probably this. You need to drink more of these, buddy. They're not doing the trick just yet. So I got a little quesadilla weight to work off, but it was well worth it.
I apologize to everybody in advance if there's squeaking and growling in this episode. The new puppy does not understand nor respect studio rules, so it is what it is.
The squealing and growling is not Tony, in case you wondered. So anyway, it's been a busy couple weeks. We had Players Championship. That was fun, kind of unofficial kickoff to this part of the season. The world is waking up. The weather is changing. We have the Masters in a couple weeks, but this tournament gets hidden in here. We're talking Innisbrook, obviously. Valspar, which for my money has one of the top 2 tee markers on tour. They have like the little paint cans they use for the tee markers. I love that. The other one I really love is John Deere. The John Deere, they got the little tractors. I just think it's a nice touch. But Viktor Hovland, here's what I want to talk about. His bag. I went through it and put down an approximate date at which each piece, each club that he uses in his bag, when it came out. And I want to see if you can match it up.
Sure. I'll play along. I won't look.
Okay. Well, you can kind of look, but, whatever. We're going to start with the driver. Ping G425 LST. What year?
Let's see. So 25, 23, like 21, 20, 21?
1 for 1. You were 1 for 1. 2021. So 2 full generations ago. The shaft that he has in that driver is
tell me it's a nunchuck. I want to hear nunchuck.
It's not the nunchuck, but it is.
We're not going.
It's almost as exciting. It's when Fujikura updated
Black
their
Ops
speeder.
before remember before PXG was Black Ops. There was the Black Ops shaft.
Yes.
The logo was like a knife with a drop of blood on it.
It was almost as good as that the raw golf ball. When they had the thing as like this, eating raw steak, like animal eating raw steak. Anyway, Fujikura speeder. This was the 661 TR update. He's still rocking that shaft. Want to take a guess on the year for that shaft? TR update in the speeder line was what
2013.
Year? Not bad. 2018. Not quite as old, but still, I think, 2018. Yeah. All right. This one, 3-wood Sim TI. So ventures away from the ping for the
3, 4, 5, 2020.
Yeah. Solid.
Yeah. Tailor-made math is easy because it's just 1 year repeatable.
Mm-hmm. One upside to the 12-month product cycle with some stuff is like...
I always know where I am in time and space.
Yep. So 2000, utility iron, Titleist U505. I had to look this one up because I was like,
20, it's not too old, right? 21, 23?
2021. You're killing it. And This one was harder for me. He has, I want to say it's 4-3 wedge, Ping I 210 irons.
It's got to be around 21 again, I would think.
2018.
Wow. Okay.
2018. Now, I stopped the list there just simply because wedges wear out, so you update those. So
that was something I wanted to call attention to, right? Because we do this every week. We talk about the stuff that's in player's bag, and I don't want to say invariably, but quite often somebody has something that is old by even average golfer standards. Like your best friend who plays 25 times a year would have replaced it by now. But what you never ever see in a tour player's bag is old wedges. Never, right? Because they wear, the grooves actually do something, they matter. And so, this idea, like these guys that have like original beryllium copper pings in their bags, or I have a buddy who just bought an SM6 or some such off eBay, and he's like, well, it's new to me. I'm like, gee, yeah, don't do that. Anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting that, So the two things I took away from that, like, and again, we preach this all the time, but it's sometimes it's hard to find great examples of this. Like, this could have been a what's in a bag from his winning bag 4 years ago.
This is borderline like when I do, when I'm out doing my Tuesday night league, or when I do tournaments, right? Member, guest member, and I take rando what's in the bag photos. Like it's not quite to the extreme level that I see, but this is pretty close to rando what's in the bag, because it's not, it's not all ping by any stretch, right? Nope. It's not all 2024 or newer.
Nope.
It's an interesting mix. I love that. Yeah,
and it answers to me. It continues to answer that question we get so often, which is, hey, should I upgrade from X to Y? And we generally tell people, hey, year over year in a driver, probably not, unless there's something big that you're looking for, irons, etc. And
either it's been a while or there's something that's fundamentally changed. But the years of 10 more yards, that kind of thing, long over. And it's funny because I can't recall the last time an OEM made any type of big distance claim. And yet every time we put up a new post, there's a reader that's like, oh, they're claiming 10 more. I'm like, no, nobody.
No. Anyway. I think golfers still feel burned by that clearly golfers have both really long and really short memories, depending on what the topic is. And
really selective memories is what we're talking about.
Memories, and this is a case where they do. So let's actually transition into that, because we had an article came out on Monday, which was our high swing speed test results. People are clamoring for these right away. When we launched the driver test results, people were like, oh, well, that's great, but this is just the overall results. What about me? Which is good, I think, in a sense. We want people to try and find themselves in the data and say, hey, what applies most directly to me? And so as we segment it out a little bit, we'll kind of get through and get into some of the stuff. But the one we segmented out right away was high swing speed. So take me through, and there's, okay, how do we do that? How do we take that data out, if you will, and what does that data actually mean? Like, what is a high swing speed?
Yeah, so we split the testing pool into 3 groups, roughly 15 mile an hour ranges. As I've said numerous times, our test pool tends to skew slightly faster than the average golfer as a whole, and a good bit of the reason for that is that these guys, testing is an intensive process. It takes, I think for this test, every golfer was in 12 different sessions roughly.
Yeah, the way we
some guys can cut it by a session or two because they can handle like an extra driver, but we try and keep those shot counts, if you will, relatively low, so that fatigue doesn't become an issue and things like that. So because of that, we tend to have fewer of those 75 to 85 mile an hour guys. It's just hard for them to generally keep up with the demands. So we do skew a little bit faster, and there's also an element of our testers being avid golfers who want to come in and hit those stuff. And I would guess that type of player trends a little bit faster as well.
Sure.
So anyway, very, very long story short, this is 105 plus.
Okay, so you're 105 mile an hour plus. That's what we
it's probably going to be average right around 110. We do have one guy in the mix pushing 130, a couple others in the 120s. So
Yep.
it's a good range even within the fast pool.
Yeah. All right. So when we segment that out, we keep our scoring metrics and stuff the same as we do for the overall test. So it's not any different in terms of how we
No.
assess the data or what we're looking for. It's the same weighting, the same criteria, or same process. Top 5. Let's start with third.
Let's see. Do we have
No surprise.
I have the top 5 in front of me. I do.
I had top 3, and then
let's do top 3. I think So I think we can go top 5, but it's pretty similar. But yeah, so top 3, counting down. Number 3, Callaway Elite Triple Diamond. Not a surprise, right? We know this is a good driver. I think it's going to show up pretty much on every swing speed list. May not be at the top, but it's one of those like it may not be the best for absolutely everybody, but it's not really bad for anybody.
Yeah, it's
broad
always
strokes.
Yeah, I think
it just shows up, right?
Yeah, your overall winner is gonna show up in different places depending on how you break down the data. So I'm not at all surprised to see a low spin model that, again, on paper you would say, okay, if I had a guess, this is a category I would think it would do pretty well in, and most certainly did. So still on the podium. Which
and I think the thing that is worth reiterating is that this Triple Diamond is a little bit different than past Triple Diamonds. So a little more spin, a little more neutral. It is not that, it's not quite what you would consider like a Callaway take on a GT4, for example. It's not that like, no, this is, this tiny little wants to go right with not a whole lot of spin type of driver. This is a much more neutral and much more playable Triple Diamond from Callaway. So not a surprise there. Number 2, again, GT3, which the 3 driver in the Titleist lineup since TSI anyway has just been, good and increasingly gets better with every generation to the point where, again, this one is one where it's kind of that mid-low spin, but with plenty of adjustability. And that's another piece of it too. We do we call fit from stock, basic fitting. And so the more levers that we have at our disposal, the more we can dial in a driver. And so between the SureFit hosel and that movable weight on this, you can do a lot, especially, relative to, I guess maybe not, because you've seen, like, if anything, you've seen low spin designs becoming more versatile in recent years. So like TaylorMade QI35 LS, the Cobra LS line, where you're starting to say, you don't necessarily just have to go all in on low spin. You can move some weight around. You can introduce some bias if you need it. So versatility in a mid-low spin package, not a surprise. Nope. I think maybe the one at the top of the list might be a surprise to a lot of people.
I'm going to ask you about that one because, on the GT3, we both have quite a lot of experience with that particular model. And like you said, I think what's really interesting to me about GT3 is that in that low spin category, right, OEMs, they kind of turn that dial all the way up at one point, saying, okay, if I want this thing to be fast and low spin, we know that's going to work against certain things, but let's push it that direction first and then kind of, ease it back a little bit through some other avenues. So we saw that, right? We've seen that where it's like, okay, but now with the weight track up front so that you can go, and again, that's much more, people get this one wrong too. Aligning that weight track in the front is much more about aligning the weight with your impact location. So if you tend to hit it off the heel, that doesn't mean you want to move the weight to the toe because you're hitting this pull cut, or you move it to the heel because you're trying to hit a draw. Get that kind of in line with the impact location, but then you can use the SureFit hosel to adjust for start line bias, curvature bias, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a more robust understanding of fitting capabilities, right? So there's the traditional, I'm fighting a slice, let me put the weight in the heel. And you can do that, right? You can pull that lever with GT3, but if you're also a guy who just makes impact a little heelward consistently. Right? You're not necessarily trying to introduce any shot shape correction. You're trying to put the CG in line with your impact position to maximize ball speed. So a couple different approaches you can take to fitting. And again, you can use those in conjunction. So I tend to, I'm not necessarily what I would call a heel smacker. I tend to favor the toe more, but I also sometimes hang that face open a little bit and need a little bit of that slice correction. So what I do with my GT3, I've talked about this before, put that weight in the heel. And then what sometimes happens is when I'm swinging well, I get that kind of that overdraw, if you will. And then the answer to that, flatten out the lie angle a little bit so that you're pointing it right at the start. And, on good or even average days, it's a reliable draw that maybe isn't, how I get there maybe isn't the way that everybody kind of thinks about fitting, but it works.
Sure.
So
yeah, at least
just understand the levers and you can kind of move them around, pull them anyway.
Yep. It's an absolutely wonderful driver for sure. I did not see this coming. I didn't, the driver in the number one spot, I did not see this coming.
We're gonna have a lot of these type of conversations as we move down from high swing speed to mid swing speed to low swing speed in the coming weeks, where some of what rises to the top is maybe not what people expect. And so for high speed players, number one for high swing speed players, Cobra DS Adapt Max K. So Cobra's 10K driver at the top for high swing speed players. And you're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Or some may think that. But if you think about it conventionally, right? I talk about...
Make sense to me then.
So I describe speed, swing speed, ball speed, any kind of speed as gasoline, right? It's because everything in golf is exponential. As that swing speed ramps up, you get exponential ball speed benefit. But as you miss the sweet spot, the center of the face, you get exponential declines in that ideal ball speed. So you get, your 10%, if you're swinging 10% at 110, or if you lose 10% at 110 miles an hour and I lose 10% at 95 miles an hour, in terms of actual miles per hour, you have lost more than I have.
Yeah.
Right? That's the math.
Right. The nominal amount is more.
And so when you have faster players who are being punished more in terms of just a raw ball speed number, for example, having that extra bit of MOI, especially for average fast speed players, right? The tour players, they miss, but they don't miss like the rest of us, right? They're going to be mostly centered, which is why you see things like GT3 and Triple Diamond on tour and not a lot of max Ks. Right. But for the average high swing speed golfer who is nibbling outside of the center face, that MOI benefit, especially if it's kind of an inconsistent miss. Again, if you are consistently on the toe, I'm going to say, hey, you're probably better off with a GT3, slide that weight over behind impact and have the time of your life. But if you're kind of dotting that face a little bit, a high MOI driver can be very good for a high swing speed player.
So what about this? The other thing people have to wrestle with on this one, and I guess this is part of what I love about the testing too, is it makes you examine, I think, some kind of those maybe core beliefs that either companies have tried to promote depending on what they were selling that year or just conventional wisdom. But one of the pieces here is if I'm a high swing speed player, I probably need a low spin head.
Yeah, and that's
Max K is not a low spin head.
That's not always how it works. And I think a lot of this conventional thinking is born from a relentless feeling that everything needs to be simplified. And it's just not that simple, right? We find that, again, to tease what's coming, right? Very often low swing speed drivers work well for slower swing speed players. And you say, well, that doesn't make sense either.
Yeah, why would a low spin driver work well?
And it's what if, right? What if instead of describing them as low spin, we describe them as ball speed optimized? Because that's essentially what we're talking about, right? The center of gravity in a low spin design is forward. That promotes more ball speed.
Right.
Lower spin is a byproduct of that. But if you are able to take that same LS head and fit the player into, say, a 10.5 degree, maybe crank up the loft a little bit more, slower swing speed, again, less gasoline on the fire, so to speak.
Right.
And so you're not punished as much for that off-center hit, but you are getting that ball speed benefit of the forward center of gravity location. So, and it's kind of the inverse of what we're talking about with high swing speed players. So there's not ever a simple answer, right? It is very player dependent. But again, the slower swing speed player is often, in terms of pure miles per hour, punished less than the high swing speed player making that same impact. And so, if you believe that high MOI drivers are strictly for lower swing speed players and low spin drivers are strictly for faster players, you're really missing a whole lot of fitting nuance.
Yeah, the driver that's, and again, it's like this two different worlds, right? Where if you have people that are going to just get fit off the rack and go in and buy something based on one criteria, that's why it's still like, again, kind of buying lottery tickets, and you buy the one that's most middle of the market. It's
kind of like safe for everybody, optimized for almost nobody.
Yeah, but if you really want to get the most performance out of your driver, you really actually have to stop and think, what do I actually need to do that? Is it more spin? Is it less spin? Am I a really high swing speed player that, like you said, I need,
Because there are a whole lot of opposites in this, right? Like, yeah, we can say high MOI versus low MOI, but equally, it's typically faster ball speeds versus lower ball speeds, right? And so and
again, it's relative. So somebody made a comment on the article too, like, oh, well, the difference between X and Y was only, 4 yards or 3 point whatever yards, it's a step and a half. And my response to that is, like anything else, like, would you rather have that extra 3 yards or not?
Right.
You don't need it. They're close, no doubt, but would you rather have the one that tested as a step longer or not?
Yeah, and that's a question too, right? All right, so it's 3.5 yards between two drivers in a test. What is it? And this is the thing that matters. What is it relative to what you're playing right now?
Right.
And if you want to say it's 3.5 yards and say, all right, I am 3 big steps farther down the fairway, is that worth it? That's your decision, man. Yeah. Like, is it worth it to you? Is it worth it to anybody? Right. So I don't know.
But it's there. Yeah. There. It's there if you want it. The best for distance, we know that again was the Max K, Cobra DS Adapt Max K. Last one on this one before we go to a different topic. Best for accuracy was the Ping G440 SFT. So again, like I said, when I'm looking through it make sense to me, Tony. The model that is designated for the player who needs help fighting a slice, and we've said this for a long time.
So again,
better job with this model than Ping is the most accurate driver for us for the highest swing speed players is the one designed to fight a slice. Make it make sense to me.
This maybe, and we'll see. My season is not started yet. I just got a questionable email explaining a delay that makes no sense, especially when every other course in the area is open. But anyway, I digress. This Ping G440 SFT is quite literally on the top of my takeout on the course list this year. You were there at Ping. We've talked about what happened.
Wouldn't have believed it if I wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know what they did. I really don't, because it seems like in our test, right? We've seen things that suggest that it works for correcting a slice. Mm-hmm. But again, there's enough tuning here between, right? You can go the draw setting or the max draw setting. You can play with the hosel and make some changes there to kind of realign, right? Think about it like if you played indoor golf and you don't like the line you have, right? You touch the screen and adjust your aim. That's kind of what you're doing with a face angle change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this one, I just think it's super well balanced in terms of how it performs. If you look at our accuracy metrics, right? Straight shot percentage, we've talked about that, and just kind of, would it be in a fairway that got progressively wider with distance? Yeah. Kind of a less exaggerated take on a baseball diamond, if you will. Yep. And kind of that playable shot percentage. Does it stay out of trouble? Yeah, it does. And then the last piece of that is the grouping of shots pretty tight. Those are our 3 accuracy metrics, and I'm not surprised. Once upon a time, I would have been surprised. We talked to adding the 9-degree option to
That
this
is
head
huge. You're adding
has
the
been
lower
a
loft
world
and
of
the
difference.
SFP.
He said Philip, when he saw it, he was like, yeah, okay.
Came on, yeah.
The fitters we've talked to, we know they were asking for it. Our friends at Pete's Golf, they were certainly on the list of guys that were like, hey, Ping, if you were to make a lower lofted model in this, we think you really have something.
Mm-hmm.
And again, right, it's almost a preposterous starting point to say we only think guys that fit into higher lofted heads slice the ball.
Right.
And we know that's not true. So this was kind of like a no-brainer, several generations in the making, and I just think it's a really good driver.
Yeah, if I'm a high swing speed player, that and like I said, the Cobra Max, like I'm going, okay, now I have 2 more drivers to try that I would not have been even thinking about, most likely. GT3, we know that's fast. I mean, the whole GT lineup has gotten really fast. So, okay, that makes sense. The Triple Diamond makes sense. But the other ones go, okay. Did not see that coming. That's why you test people with real
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I understand you see Ping 440 SFT on this list for faster swing speed golfers, and you're like, it doesn't make sense. But as a guy who went out and experienced it for myself on the range with Ping, like, this makes way more sense than I think most people would imagine. And for me, who has, when I last week or the week before put up my list of most iconic drivers of the MyGolfSpy era, according to me, from that list, the original G400, the first LST, or the first one I fell in love with anyway. That one has made me a fan of LST every step of the way. And so for me to sit here and say that, in terms of functional playability, lowering my scores, keeping the ball between the lines, I'm actually more excited about the SFT this year. Like, never in a million years.
Think about that.
Yeah. Unreal. So,
speaking of things to be excited about, hey, congratulations to Tiger Woods, announcing his relationship with.
I'm making a very public announcement on my relationship. Please respect my privacy.
I know, that was my favorite part. It has nothing to do. I'm making a very public declaration to millions and millions of golfers. Now leave me alone. So, congratulations, Tiger, for whatever it's worth. Fantastic. Putter Wars. It's game on. It is game on. You wrote a fantastic article last week. And I highly encourage everybody to go take a look at what we're talking about.
Many people enjoyed it. Many people did not enjoy my potty mouth. So
this tenuous balance between copying, being inspired by, taking design cues from one product and allowing them to create the blueprint for another product. So this one goes all over the place. I'm going to try to keep us on the rails, but let's start with just what we saw with, we're talking specifically Labs DF3 model and the pictures we saw on an Odyssey model that, again, is literally carbon copy.
Egregious. Absolutely egregious.
What's your take on that? Is this just Odyssey straight up trying to hit Xerox and go, now we got ours? Or what is this?
This one feels more middle fingery than most copies within a copycat industry, if that makes sense. Like, it just feels, I don't know.
Why does it
feels a little personal? I don't know.
Because
there is some like behind the scenes back and forth that not everybody may be aware of. Most notably, right, the Callaway / Odyssey sending Lab Putter a cease and desist over the use of broomstick to describe the long putter.
Right, that's why they're called sweeper putters now. You can't use the term broomstick, so
that was
sweeper.
As I mentioned in the article, that is just like petty, but in line with lots of other things that have happened in the history of golf equipment. Petty. So I kind of roll my eyes at it. I'm like, really? Is this what it comes down to? Is this, this is how silly we're going to be about this stuff? And so, there is a little bit of a juxtaposition of logic, if you will, where it's like, hey, you can't say sweeper or excuse me, broomstick, because we have a trademark on that, and we need to protect it, and whether it's about originality or whatever, and like, but we are going to blatantly knock you off because we can do that. So
Yeah.
but again, and then I go through, right? You look at lab models. We talked about this, right? The new Oz, for example, you could say that it looks similar to an OG or Aussie. We found some stuff in the Ping lineup that is probably even a closer match. The Link is quite obviously an answer. Nobody's shying away from that, right? That's the shape everybody wants. That's kind of like in kind of researching this conversation, but in my own head a little bit, I was like, I saw one of the pictures, like, wait a minute, that looks like the PXG Blackbird, right? If you really want to kind of get into just the raw shaping. So, again, you can find examples in everybody's lineup. So it's just what's done. Well, it's just how it works.
At what point in time does a design, one caveat, right? It's always the person who comes the second to the party that's going to get the lion's share of the attention of, that's a direct copy because you're the first one to copy it, I guess. At what point in time does it just become an accepted design? Because we were talking about this with like the winged mallet, which is now a term that we use basically for what's TaylorMade Spider that had a similar run, and it seems like everybody has their version now of a winged mallet. No doubt. You mentioned answer style, right? We can go back to that. But at what point in time, like how many more of these, let's say DF3 type designs need to come out before it's, hey, that's just a shape of a putter that's out there now, as opposed to one company copying another?
I think, I don't know what the answer is. I have no idea of kind of what the informal rule is on
like, is it 3?
How long a shape has to be on the market, or how many people have to copy it before we accept other copycats. But I think if you are a putter designer of any kind and your shape achieves ubiquity within the industry, like what greater compliment to your success is there? At least answer is everywhere, right? Yeah. The Fang now, everybody has a Fang. Everybody has a Spider.
Yeah.
One time or another, right? 8802s. These are all persistent, ubiquitous shapes in nearly every lineup. So if Lab can do that, if you get to the point where whether it's in a zero torque, low torque, whatever you want to call it, right? Whether it's in this center shafted unconventional space, or kind of like the PXG Blackbird, where like we're gonna put the shape on something a bit more conventional. If you get there, man, take the win, I think, and hopefully everybody remembers where it started.
I was gonna say, is there, when I look at it, I don't have any reason to think this isn't just a really good thing for Lab. Ultimately, it's a great thing for Lab when anybody is inspired by or takes your design or whatever. I'm sure there's a piece of you that goes, oh, are you kidding me? Really? That's where this is going to go? But ultimately, isn't that kind of what you want as a company? Is for particularly, you take Odyssey, which is, again, depending on the month that we're looking at data, etc., let's call it the number one brand in golf, certainly on tour, worldwide tours it is. So for them, an industry behemoth, to say, hey, we think that there's enough market, or we're convinced enough that this design is beneficial, something we feel we can sell, we're getting, whether it's tour players asking for it or whatever the case is, hey, we're going to try to steal some of our tour players back, maybe that went to a Lab putter. Isn't that ultimately a good thing for Lab?
I think so. I think probably if you're Sam Hahn, I think it's probably all happening a little fast, a little too all at once, where, this time last year, right? 1 year ago, we weren't talking about Odyssey square to square, PXG Allen putters, right? They didn't exist.
Right.
And we can talk about, as readers have pointed out, Lab wasn't the first, somebody else did this. It's kind of that, the back and forth. But in terms of the market awareness of a technology, Lab was still gaining momentum and doing so without any competition, serious or otherwise.
Right.
And now, here we are just what feels like a week later. I know it's been more than that, but you've got kind of the PXG, there's back and forth with that, Odyssey square to square, even roll. We know, or at least we've heard, Scotty Cameron has something in the works.
Yeah,
right? This is
stuff, yeah.
TaylorMade. We've seen a TaylorMade prototype, right? So to the best of my knowledge, the only putter company of consequence that I haven't seen anything from, haven't had confirmation from, and is kind of denied any immediacy is Ping.
Except they had the one out there that Hovland used for the 1 week.
But was that zero torque? Do we know?
I mean, it was a version of it, but
so
so I almost even have to throw Ping in there now. And you look at the market share number, look at the dollar share numbers, and again, depending on the month that you're looking at, but Lab is a solid number 3. I mean, you take, and everybody and their mom's going to say, okay, Odyssey, Cameron, 1 and 2, okay, great. And then you look at, I mean, trending towards a 20% market share, almost, or dollar share anyway, in terms of market. That is massive. Like, that is going from...
And keep in mind, that's, normally, I guess the point I'm making is not everything is indexed, right? Lab does a lot of direct to consumer, probably on percentage 40, more than the other guys.
They're a third to 40% of their stuff is
right, which is going to be more than Odyssey, definitely more than Cameron.
Right.
You can't go to the Titleist website and order a Cameron, can you? Might be able to.
Now. I don't know.
Can't do a Ping yet.
I haven't done it.
I mean, it's recently. If it is, it's relatively recent.
Point being, they're more reliant on DTC than a lot of their competitors, and yet they're still ahead of Cobra and Ping and Mizuno and even
TaylorMade
and Tommy Armour and whomever.
Bettinardi, right? All these names that have been grinding at this for years, and that's not to say that Lab hasn't been grinding at this for years. We talked about, right, like this right. Overnight success that took 10 years to achieve, right? So,
right. And it's not to say that those market share numbers will stay that way forever, but I can tell you that, on a year-to-year basis, we tend to see metalwood numbers often jump and bounce. There's more volatility, right?
Metalwoods it's a trampoline. It's, everybody's bouncing around on a trampoline. Wee, we're number one.
But Lab has gotten to a position where they're at, and again, we'll see. But the putter wars continue. There's definitely going to be more to this story. We have other stuff we're going to talk about coming up in a couple weeks. We're going to dive more into mini drivers because that's going to become another topic here again shortly as we get to that tournament in Augusta. I want to debate free fittings with you. That went wild on our socials last week. Maybe we have to table that one to next week. But one programming note, congratulations to Rapsodo, because the stack system is now fully integrated on your Rapsodo. So what a fantastic thing for a consumer.
No need to scream out your swing speeds anymore. It goes right from the Rapsodo. Yeah.
104.
What do I need this to be? What do I need this to be to feel good? You can't cheat anymore. So no do-overs.
Yeah. And we're going to have other stuff coming out, swing speeds, right? We're going to have middle range, right, or mid-range swing speeds. We're going to have slow swing speeds. We'll go through all that stuff. We got more testing results coming out soon. So stay tuned. As you have questions, let us know. Find us, follow us on all the interwebs. Until then, we out.